Thank you and a very warm good evening to everyone. I hope you can hear me. Um, so looking at the topic for the event, correct, which is the e-commerce and the startup landscape in India, I thought it would be good to give you a banker's perspective on what we see, how the ecosystem looks like, and how the different components of the ecosystem are interrelated. And of course, from a banking perspective, what are the changes that are happening today, which startups can leverage and therefore make their processes more efficient and take advantage of the innovations that are happening today, right? So, very simply, if you were to, look at the banker's perspective on how the ecosystem looks like, there are many moving parts here. Okay, and if, it's the internet economy, it's the age of convenience, efficiency. So people today, from the convenience of or the comfort of their homes, are wanting to transact, buy products, sell products, and essentially do everything for which they had to earlier step out of their offices or the house and engage in spending money and buying products and services, right? So today, everything is happening online. That's what really the internet economy is about. Just to state some simple facts, today, India is the third largest internet base in the world. It's the second largest market for companies like Facebook and LinkedIn. We already have about 1 billion mobile connections, and it is expected that by 2020, 30% of all transactions will happen through mobile phones. Okay, so that's really the power of the change today. And if you look at the ecosystem, on the bottom right-hand corner, we have the core e-commerce players like marketplaces and e-tailing, right? But to support the whole e-commerce or internet company, we also need other elements which help fulfill delivery of products and services to the end user, right? So we have logistics companies, for example, who will actually pick up the goods from a warehouse and ensure that it is delivered to residents, whoever is buying it. We also have analytic firms, right? So when a lot of transactions are happening online, it is very valuable to look at transaction data, and therefore which really unlocks trust of clients. And CRM companies therefore use this data to get closer to clients and understand consumption patterns, right? We have app developers. So a lot of you probably are looking at designing and developing new apps which help consumers to come closer to what they really want, which is either the product or service provider, or it is a service they want to use through the online channel. And of course, a very critical component of this entire ecosystem is smartphones, right? Today, as I mentioned, a lot of transactions are happening on smartphones. It is therefore also important for smartphones to be able to come up with solutions which are user-friendly and at the same time integrated with banks, with online companies, etc. So essentially, this is what it is about. The key message here is there's a lot of interdependency and collaboration required between these entities, and it is very important that they function well and in a way use each other to enable successful delivery of the product and service to the end consumer, right? Now, let me also give you a perspective on to bring in really the relation between the e-commerce ecosystem and what really the innovations are happening today in the payments landscape. Let me also bring out some perspective on how the banking or the cash management landscape has evolved over the last 10 or 12 years. Okay, so in 2000 and starting 2004 and a little before that, the Reserve Bank of India realized that India more and more needs to become cashless, right? So we all know that a lot of transactions today happen on cash. We also know that it is still the whole clearing mechanism in India is very complex. We still have a lot of checks and demand drafts which are moving from one location to the other. So first of all, the RBI thought that the content of paper in the whole infrastructure needs to come down, which will also mean that it will be easier for the RBI and for the banks to operate. Their costs will come down. The whole this would help elimination of fraud and risk. So to reduce really the cash in the system, they came up with things like NEFT, ECS, right, and of course e-payment of taxes. So today a lot of you will be sending payments through RTGS or NEFT. You would be also buying a lot of stuff online. So this is really where it all began when RBI really started this whole shift. Okay, going forward, it was also realized that the B2C or the retail segment, right, in the economy is a very huge component, and that also needs to be addressed, right? So which is really called retail payments, and therefore there was a body called as the NPCI, which was set up by the RBI in 2008, which is the National Payments Corporation of India, which was really to set up systems of affordable payments for the common man, okay, and enable payments to be very easily done by on the retail side, and also enable financial inclusion. So the NPCI really took up the initiative of setting up alternate ways of making payments, and which also included IMPS. So I'm not sure if you heard of things like IMPS and ACH, but IMPS is a 24/7 low-cost way of making payments through your mobile phone, right, through an MMID and your MPIN. So IMPS was started, ACH was started. So ACH is again a way for companies to either make payments or receive money from their clients on the same day through electronic means, right? And it's a pull-based way of receiving payments. So things like IMPS and ACH were commenced. In August 2015, the RBI also granted in-principle licenses to 11 private players to set up payment banks. Okay, now this is also with the objective of financial inclusion, to reach out to rural and tier 2 and tier 3 cities and towns of India, by which they could own a saving account, they could make domestic remittances, government subsidies could be paid out, they could also pay their bills, right? So this is what was envisaged, and in-principle licenses were granted. And this was again with a view that the economy should be made more and more cashless as we go ahead. Two more critical things have been planned. One is the National Giro infrastructure for bill payments, which is a common clearing system for consumers to make all their bill payments, right? So, which also includes redressal mechanisms, grievance forums, etc. But it provides a very seamless way for a consumer to make any kind of bill payment through that platform. The other and most critical and most recent innovation today is the UPI. Now again, I'm not sure if all of you have heard about it, but that's a unified payment interface. Now with that, through a single click and a two-factor authentication, payments can be made from your mobile phone. And for example, if you're making a payment to anyone, you don't even need to know the account number and IFSC code. There is a virtual payments address which everyone will own for a particular banking relationship, and you just need to know that for making the payment. So through a single click, the payment can be made. If you are a startup and if you want to collect payment from a retail consumer, you can send the invoice over this platform, and basically what will happen is a trigger message will go to the end consumer, who will just with a single click authorize the payment, and you can receive the payment. It's as simple as that, okay? So even if you're buying something online, you don't have to go through the whole process of keying in your debit card number, credit card number, CVV, waiting for an OTP, etc. Through UPI, again, single click, you can make the transaction seamlessly, which would also mean that the drop-off rates for an online company when they collect payments will substantially reduce. Because while making the payment, for example, if the system hangs, there's a large time duration which will essentially get cut down. So UPI is of very should be of very high interest to all of you. It really is about simplification in making retail in making payments. So this is what the ecosystem looks like when it comes to payments. Okay, which is important for us to understand because this will really change the way on how we are receiving money or paying money today. Um, so going forward, just some thoughts around. I'll spend a little time on specifically though I've already spoken about this, but what are the key mechanisms for collecting money, right? Today, for a corporate, when you're starting business, and it's very important for all of companies, all of you, to ensure that your working capital cycle is minimized, right? Because you need to ensure that all the cash is really invested in the business, and you don't have outstandings, which is basically your clients who still have to pay you, which is the really blocked capital. So some of the solutions that you can look at today is a IMPS. As I mentioned, IMPS is also a substitute for in a way, card payments. It's a low-cost 24/7 way of collecting money. And it can also be used for online transactions. And the other is UPI, as I mentioned. And of course, if there is a challenge in terms of clients using online channels or electronic channels, you can still opt for paper-based ways of collecting money, which is through checks, through again new means like the check truncation system or speed clearing, which really reduces today the time in which you get the credit in your account, right? Historically, for outstation checks, it used to take anything between 10 or 20 days for you to collect money. But today, with innovations like speed clearing and this truncation system, you get the credit as soon as 1 or 2 days. So that's I think worth noting. Again, there will be startups who will grow, become international, right? So it's very important for such companies to ensure that the buyers and sellers are globally connected, and you are connected to your buyers and sellers, and you have complete visibility and control on the foreign exchange, right? So you need to ensure that your forex is efficient, and therefore you make the most out of what you get in terms of FX. And again, there it becomes important to have a digital interface, and the front end and back end are fully integrated for you as well, right? And this all has to be done in a secure environment. So you need to ensure that the banking platform has surveillance, firewalls, encryption, and all this is done in a BCP environment, right? So to ensure that your business is not impacted at all, and you can focus on really your core business development or finance activities, and really the platform takes care of itself in terms of what are the transactions hitting the platform and going out. So things like SWIFT, for example, is something which is a bank agnostic channel wherein you can get connected through your vendors and clients through the channel in different parts of the world, right, through a single channel. So you don't need to essentially work with multiple banks, or even if you work with multiple banks through a common connectivity, which is SWIFT, you can get connected in a seamless way to your vendors and clients across the world. It's also important for you to be able to reconcile, have reconciliation solutions which are integrated completely back into your backend, and which help you know what are the invoices for you that are outstanding, how much is paid against an invoice, which is a vendor which has been paid against what invoice, etc., etc. So this entire engine has to be very seamlessly operating, and your backend, which would generate an MI for you, should be a very granular and at an invoice level. So reconciliation solutions become very important for you to operate in today's environment, right? And of course, as you grow, companies will be having their own ERPs, and it's important for a banking platform to get connected to that ERP, whether it is SAP, Oracle, JD Edwards, Ramco, anything. So again, that is something which is important for you to take note of. So while that is on to give you a flavor of banking, but I think it's in just some flavor on what HSBC is about. We have very sort of historical roots today in India. Since 1853, we are present in 29 cities through 50 branches, And while we have 50 branches, but we are connected to all the remote corners of the country through our Alliance Bank network, which consists of 9 public sector banks and 7 private sector banks. So while of course you have the electronic channels today for which you don't need a bank branch to make, to transact with anyone, but even if you need to transact with anyone through a check, through our Alliance banking network, we can connect you anywhere, okay? We are also structured in a way which would cater to your entire life cycle. So from the time you think of an idea to start up, from the time you want some investments coming in, you want to know how to structure those investments, what is the kind of advisory support you need, how do you stay compliant in a very heavily regulated market like India, what are the documents you require for getting your investments in. So right from that kind of support to setting up these platforms, which I spoke of earlier, which essentially makes your business really, really lean and efficient. And to, again, going forward, when you need to be ensure that there are no teething issues for you, your transactions are going seamlessly, you're collecting money seamlessly. So which is essentially a whole service proposition. So that's the way we are structured through your entire life cycle to ensure that you are really focusing on your business. Okay, and again, in terms of the products and services, we are a one-stop shop provider for all your banking requirements, be it loans, be it FX, cash management, which I spoke about today, and even trade finance and supply chain finance, right? So that's what really we are in a nutshell. I have my team present here in the center, Prashant, Noor, Praveen, Shweta, and Vikash. So I would encourage you to, of course, we can have a short Q&A right now, but even during the networking session, I would encourage you to interact with us, and please feel free to ask any sort of questions that you may have. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hemang. Are there any questions for Hemang right away, or would you want to take it up during the networking dinner? If you have a question, yes. Can we please get a mic across?
I'll be very frank on this one. This seems too big picture. It seems like for corporates who have a certain turnover, so already into business. What are the things which HSBC has specifically for startups when they are in the idea stage, then they get their first funding, the angel, then getting into seed, and then they have to maintain proper records, do payments, transfer. So what are the products specific for, or especially tailored for startups? I wouldn't say specific, tailored for startups.
See, I think what I spoke about is, I think, it's very important for startups to, and why we are doing this today, right? It's very important for startups to be aware of what is, what are the innovations today in the market, because many times we find that when we reach out to a corporate, they have to spend a lot of time in really changing their operations, the way they are working to become more efficient, okay? They are of course, not as lean. They have large administrative staff or finance teams who are doing all this recon work, manual work, etc., etc. And then we have to spend considerable time to give that kind of advisory support and make them, show them what efficiency is and how they can really actually transact in today's environment and become very efficient and really reduce their cost of operations. And I'm talking of real bottom line reductions in terms of cost of operations, banking costs, and liquidity costs, and therefore reduction working capital cycle, okay? But what we are saying today is that this is something a startup can embed today in their operations right from day one, okay? And of course, we are free to meet you, we are happy to meet you even after this event, maybe to take you through the details of what we have. But if today you set up a platform which is efficient and which incorporates all the innovations that we have shown today, from day one, you are there, okay? And you are ensuring that you are not investing any time and energy of yours into activities that you should not be investing in, okay? Of course, so that's one. The other thing is we have solutions around now, whenever startup also gets investments, funding, whether from domestic or from internationally, it's very important to channelize those investments effectively. Okay, you need to, there are a lot of regulations on investments coming in today. So we can help you structure the way the investments is brought in. What are the kind of approvals that you need to take when you get such investments? For some, you need to go to the RBI. For some, you don't need to go to the RBI. And there is a lot of regulatory filing that you need to do before and after you get the investments. So we have a back-end team, which is our team, which essentially liaises with the Reserve Bank of India and ensures that you are doing these filings, and any questions or questions that you may have during that process, we liaise with the RBI and come back to you with the answers. Okay, so that is important to be taken note of in the beginning. Okay, and then of course we have a lot of FX services like hedging, futures, options, and really around your FX rates, right? So how do you get the best out of your bank? So I think I would put it that way. And then of course on a day-to-day basis, we are there to support you and continue to give you advisory support, right, as you grow.
Hope this comes at a reasonable cost.
All right. Any other questions? All right, great. Thank you so much, Hemang. Can we have a huge round of applause for Hemang Desai from HSBC? Cheetah Mobile, as we heard this morning, is looking to partner with startups both from an investment perspective as well as from a development perspective. Our next speaker is Mr. Sandeep Dev Varman, who heads marketing for Cheetah Mobile in India. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Sandeep Dev Varman. Okay.